right, everybody, welcome back once again to the Not a Rabbi podcast, where we discover the unexpected in the Jewish tradition. I am your host. We have an excellent show for you today. Hope everyone is doing well wherever it may be that you are listening to this podcast. Yeah, that's about it for right now. Do I have any feedback? I don't believe I do have any feedback, which is disappointing, but hey, what are you going to do about it? Not much we can do. But we're going to go ahead and move on and talk about the some news articles that there were this week and what interesting things we can take out of those first and foremost. Then we'll get into the main topic, which is really something I can't believe I haven't really discussed until now. So I'm pretty excited about talking about that. But before we get into any of that, I need to lead off with gratitude, as always, and I would like to thank the unofficial Fifth Column podcast Discord server for allowing me once again to be in here and post live and record this live in their chat section, I guess you could say. Additionally, I would like to thank Logan Eastman for the intro music. The good intro music that you have is from him, and you can listen to that a little bit. You could listen to that at the beginning of the podcast, really. I don't know where else you could listen to it. It's exclusive. Not only that, though, you can take a look at Logan's Substack, which will be posted in the show notes, as I generally try to do. I think I've forgotten to do that one or two times. I apologize for that, Logan. Additionally, don't forget to visit notarabbi.substack.com. You can go over there and you can subscribe to the podcast and to the newsletter that we have now on a weekly basis. Yes, we have now decided to change the title or the form of the weekly piece that I put out on Wednesdays from a quote unquote newsletter to a newsletter. So it's a subtle change. I like it a little bit better because I like to try to be original, and this way I am not ripping off Jonah Goldberg anymore. I'd like to thank Jonah for not suing me at that point. So thank you. And we're going to now get into the news articles from whenever the last time it was that I didn't record. Well, so anyway, let's take a look here. So the main article that I wanted to discuss was an article that was published in National Review a couple of weeks ago, and it was written, and it's actually, I'm revisiting this article because this was an article I discussed in the newsletter, and it was written by Rabbi Meir Soloveitchik, and it is a very fascinating article. The title of the article is, and I'm going to post that into the chat in a second, What Jews Mean to America. Now, I took a piece of that and I did a little bit of a riff on that piece, which was, up my alley because it's historical. He continues on that and post this into the chat so people can take a look. And that is not what I wanted to do. No, let's go scroll back. I know how to I'm telling you the truth. No, I apparently don't know how to copy. Third time, let's just do this and say that would work much better. And then we paste it. Yeah, that's how we do it. Okay. So anyway, the title of this is What Jews Mean to America. Like I had mentioned before, I did discuss this a little bit earlier, actually in the newsletter from last Wednesday. And it is very, very interesting. Long piece, a lot of historical here, a lot of history in here, and a couple of interesting pieces that I would like to take out of this and also share with you a book that I have that ties into this as well. I think actually he may have been an editor on the book, Rabbi Soloveitchik. I'll have to double check. But starts off here, or actually not starts off, I'm going to pick up in the middle here. On July 4th, 1776, a committee comprising of John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson was created by the Continental Congress and charged with developing a seal and symbol of the nascent United States. These founders suggested an image of Moses and Pharaoh at the splitting of the sea, along with the motto, rebellion to tyrants, obedience to God. The suggestion, and ultimately not adopted, reflected not these men's devout religiosity, but their deep understanding of American culture and the place of the Hebrew Bible within it, which is very interesting. This is true. There actually were a couple of ideas that they had that were tied into the Jewish Bible for this scene. Now, I just want to go back a bit and talk about this because John Adams specifically, who I am a very big fan of, for those of you who have heard me talk about him before, and if you haven't, been part of my history classes, you don't know this as well. But I really became enamored with John Adams when I started reading his biography way before the HBO TV show came out. That was based on the biography that David McClellan wrote, I should say, and I really, really respected him. In fact, it goes even further than that with the Founding Brothers, I believe was the name of the book that was written. I don't know if I have a copy of it. I'll have to take a look to see, but it really just started describing John Adams, and the description of John Adams that I got was something that I had never known about, because John Adams is generally skipped over as a president, and B, somebody that I really started to respect. Then I went ahead, started reading his biography, reading the biography David McCullough had written, and my level of respect for him grew, exponentially, I guess you could say. I'm not sure about that would be the right word or not, but we're going to go with that in the meantime. Be that as it may, you would want to say almost that John Adams and possibly John Quincy Adams as well were a couple of the first universalists when it comes into religion, where they believed that everything was all right, everything was okay, and it was just this one major, God that was there, and everything was subparts of that. If that describes universalism, if that's the right way to say it, because I am not one of these guys. Of course, I'll probably remember the line from The Simpsons where Bart is over at his neighbor's house, the Flanders house, and they have a game that they're playing where you're trying to convert people to Christianity. It's like a first-person shooter, and what was it? And he goes, "Oh, you missed him." He goes, "No, I only winged him. He's a Unitarian now," or something like that. Anyhow, maybe I'll post that in the newsletter if I could find that clip on YouTube. Anyhow, so they did believe in God. Jefferson himself was a theist, where he believed in a God. How much did he believe in God? I don't know. But he wasn't a Christian or Catholic or Christian. Strong Christian belief of God. So they had this. They definitely did have a belief in God in some way or another. And in fact, he goes further. America felt bound to the Hebrew Bible also because of the way it saw itself. It compared itself to Israel not only because, like the Dutch, it had overthrown an empire, but because, as it ultimately announced on its seal, it believed itself to be chosen by Providence to present to the world a novus ordo seclorum, a new order for the ages, as ancient Israel had been chosen to bring the monotheistic message to humanity. And so this was the view that America actually had for itself, was that of something along the lines of Jews. He talks about Jonathan Sacks, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory, the late British chief rabbi, talking about this where he says Israel, ancient and modern, and the United States are the two supreme examples of societies constructed in conscious pursuit of an idea. All of the writings of the founders, of all the writings of the founders, it is a letter from George Washington to the Jews of Savannah in 1790 that best express this. And I'll quote a little bit of it. May the same wonder-working deity, whose long since delivering the Hebrews from their Egyptian oppressors, planted them in the promised land, whose providential agency has lately been conspicuous in establishing the United States as an independent nation, still continue to water them with the dews of heaven and to make the inhabitants of every denomination participate in the temporal and spiritual blessings. Wow, that's a mouthful. So basically, what Washington is doing is comparing the Exodus to the founding of the United States, which is fascinating. Anyhow, as you know, Washington also, or maybe you don't know, but Washington also wrote a letter to the synagogue congregation in Newport, Rhode Island, which is called the Touro Synagogue, which is one of the oldest synagogues in America. Not as old as actually the synagogue, like I mentioned before, the synagogue of Rabbi Soloveitchik, where he is rabbi right now. That is the oldest synagogue in North America, if I'm not mistaken. That was still around during the New Amsterdam days of Manhattan. But the point of the article here is that, America and Jews and Judaism are really tied together because of how the Americans who founded this country really went ahead and saw themselves, and how they saw themselves as Jews, or as they were Jews, not as actual Jews, but as sort of like Jews. Now, there was a book written, which I have right here. Hold that up here. It's called Proclaim Liberty Throughout the Land, the Hebrew Bible in the United States, a source book. And it actually goes through a lot of sources that they used for going ahead and, thinking about independence, dealing with independence, very, very, very interesting stuff. My interest is more in the revolutionary side of things, but it goes through Jacksonian America. It goes through slavery, abolitionism, and the Civil War as well. Very, very interesting book. Let me just see if I am correct. Oh, he has a preface here, so I am assuming that he is an editor here. Yes, he is an editor here, as I suspected. All in all, good book. I like it. I will post that into the show notes, hopefully, as well. Anyway, it's like I said, this article from Rabbi Soloveitchik in National Review is a very long one. I will post it, a link to it in the show notes. The link that I will post is a non-paywalled version, so you could watch it, or read it, I should say, and maybe thank me later. All right, any comments with regard to this topic? Okay, no questions. Awesome. So let's get on to the main topic that I wanted to discuss today, and that is the topic of prayer. And I really can't believe I haven't spoken about this beforehand, because it is such a basic thing that we as Orthodox Jews do, that, my goal of trying to provide insight and give a 30,000-foot view of Orthodox Judaism, I can't believe that I haven't done this until now. But I haven't, and so I'm going to try to fix that right now. And there are really two ways that we can go about doing this, because, with everything, there are two parts to, at least two parts, but here there are two parts to what we want to do. And part number one is the practice. So what I mean by that is, when we do it, what we say, all of that stuff. I don't want to call those fundamentals, but it's the practice, I guess you could say. And then the other part of it is, the more interesting part of it is, and something that I'll try to get into a little bit, and maybe we'll do a second part of this as well, is the what do we get? What are we doing? What is the purpose of prayer? And that was actually, I believe, a question that was directed to me when I suggested this topic a while ago. And let me just see if I can look that up. Wow. All right. So the question that was asked was, what is prayer for a Jew? And like I said, this really gets divided up into two different parts, I would say. And the practice and what we're getting out of it and what is our objective when we are praying. And, those are two great questions and something that I'm going to hopefully try to get through and discuss right now. And let's talk about what is prayer for a Jew. So, as Jews, we are required to pray 3 times a day. Why 3 times a day? There is actually a debate in the Talmud regarding that. I know you'll be surprised, but there is a debate in the Talmud regarding that. And that is either to correspond with the 3 forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who quote unquote created the prayers, or it is regarding the sacrifices that happened in the temple. So those are the two points of view in terms of how they were created and what they are. And this is something that is a big question, though. What are we doing when we pray? Why are we praying? Now, we as Orthodox Jews believe that God is omnipotent, all-knowing, all-powerful. So why does God need our prayers? What are we doing? Why would we do that? You could even ask. And the answer is not that we are not doing it necessarily for God, although God loves to hear our prayers. However, it's really for us. It's really for us in a lot of ways because it, as Rabbi Jacob Soloveitchik, Rabbi Meir Soloveitchik's great uncle, said that the purpose of prayer is to create a fellowship with God. And I think that's a very nice way of saying it and putting it, where we are looking to communicate with God, and in ways God communicates with us as well. It is often said that we speak to God with prayer, and God speaks to us when we are learning Torah. So we have this communication with God back and forth, and in a lot of times. And people are going to ask, well, is it just because, do you pray to God that you get a, you hit the lottery and then everything is good, and then, what happens if you don't win the lottery? Then what? And that is a very good question, because there are a lot of people, unfortunately, that are in positions and in predicaments where they pray to God to get out of those predicaments. And the fact that they are not out of those predicaments yet, what does that say, right? And this is a very big debate. I don't want to say debate, but this is a very big question that a lot of people struggle with. And, I'd be lying if I told you I didn't struggle with it, because, I did. And I, in times I still do struggle with it. In fact, it's something that is a very hard thing, and it goes to the core of our belief in God and why we are actually believing in God, and not why we're believing in God. That doesn't sound right. But, about our belief that what God is doing is for our good, I guess you could say. And my thoughts are all over the place as always with this. But there are a lot of times where we ask for things that we think that we want and would be the right thing for us to have. However, that may not be the right thing for us. I could give examples in my life where I tried for a position one time. It got shot down, and it's led me on a totally different trajectory, and probably a better trajectory for me. And so we don't know always what we need and what we want. And we have to, we know what we want. We don't necessarily know what we need, really. And that is what God is here for. God is here to provide us for better or worse. And, like I said, I'm there are things that I pray for that I have not received yet, winning the lottery. But I still continue to pray for them. There is a great story that is told by a very famous Hasidic rabbi, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Bardichev being the town that he was in. And one time he saw a child playing with a doll, and the child's head, not the child's head, sorry, the head of the doll was broken. So the child told the Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, "I'm praying that God heals the doll." A little bit later, the Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Bardichev sees the girl again and says to her, "Well, what did God say? Is your doll fixed?" And her answer was, "God said no." That's it. So sometimes, even if you want something, even if you pray for it, is it going to be necessarily the best thing for you in the world? Not necessarily. Rabbi, again, to harken back just to Rabbi Soloveitchik, Rabbi Joseph B. Soloveitchik, he grew up and he was a young man, married still, not married still, but he was married and living in Warsaw. And there was a position that had opened up to be on the rabbinical court of Warsaw. And this was a position that he wanted very, very badly. He prayed. And you know what happened? He didn't get the job. And you know what else happened? He had to go to America. And because he went to America, he was actually saved from the Holocaust that had happened, or that happened in Europe during World War II. And, the Nazis killing 6 million Jews and millions more of other people. And so, what was necessarily good for him was not what he necessarily wanted. And this is a very important story to me that I always take away and try to understand that sometimes the answer is no, and that's for a good reason. And it's not easy. Now, I just want to take a step back here. And when I talk about prayer, what I'm talking about is specifically what we call the Amidah, the standing prayer, which Amidah it means standing in Hebrew. It's also known as the Shmona Esrei, or the 18 blessings that are said, although there are 19. That's a different story for a different podcast maybe. But, that is actually the climax of the prayer service, where we have this one-on-one meeting with the CEO of the universe. And it's, there are a lot of requests that we make in the prayer. It is a prayer that is set in ways where we have specific blessings that we make. We have specific individual requests that we make in terms of the formulation of the blessing. But you can always add in your own requests that you need to. And then at the end, we have what's, like you could consider it a catch-all prayer as well, or request area, if something doesn't fit into those. So that is basically what prayer and how prayer is in Judaism. And what it is to me in a lot of different ways, because I try to believe that it's not just doing the actions that are important, but it's also putting some meaning into the actions which are important. You could say the words time and time again, repeat them all the time, but if you're not adding something, if you're not going ahead and making it your own in different ways, then you are not doing your job and you're just going through the motions. And this is actually something which the Talmud speaks about. And they say, if you just do a set prayer and not add anything new into it, then it's like you've done nothing, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing it very poorly. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But this is something that the Talmud mentions as well when it comes to prayer. And it's something that we all have to know, and we all have to, it's not easy to do, but we got to try to do it. Anyway, this is an extremely short episode of the Not a Rabbi podcast. Does not look like there are any questions in the chat today. So I will thank you very much for joining me on today's episode, and we will see you next time. My name is Aaron Benedict, and I am not a rabbi.